Okay, so 5 hours have passed, and what we can do is we can press our fingernail, or, the edge of a coin into the Copyflex, and you can see that it doesn't leave an imprint, and it has its full, rubber feel to it, so it's basically cured. And now what we want to do is we want to get into unmolding the silicone rubber mold from the 2-bit mold box. Now, what I've done is I have used a marker, and I've marked the spiral pattern that you see in the 2-bit. And I did that just to show you where you want to start to actually make a cut. And as you can see, I cut right along the spiral that's in the 2-bit. And once I've made a little cut, all I have to do is pull it off. Now, this is made of paper, and as you can see, this paper is coming right off of the Copyflex. And the reason that's happening is because we sealed the inside of the 2-bit with Sealed It, which seals a porous surface and makes it suitable for mold making with silicones. So now we have this cylinder of cured Copyflex, and inside we have our glass. Now remember, what you're seeing here is the top of the wine glass, which has been sealed with the safety clay. Now, what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to take a ruler and a marker, and I'm going to do my best to mark right down the middle, a nice straight line right down the middle of this cylinder. And then I'm going to bring that right across the middle of the top. And then I'm going to bring that down the other side. Now, this is going to serve as a cutting guide for us. And what I want you to do now is I want you to basically start at the top, take an X-Acto knife. Now make sure that the X-Acto knife blade is new and very, very sharp. I want to caution you, you can really cut yourself bad. The silicone can give a lot of resistance to this blade. And so please watch yourself, because never push so hard that if for some reason this blade were to come out, it would go across your thumb or your finger. I guarantee you're going to be visiting the emergency room. So what I do is I'm going to take this blade and I'm going to cut down into the silicone. And I am hitting the glass right now. The tip of my X-Acto knife is just kind of rolling against the glass as I cut. Now, you know that the shape of the glass, it actually comes in towards the stem, and it's actually wide right here. And so what I want you to try to do is to follow that contour until you have the blade of the X-Acto knife fully embedded. Now, it's very important, I can't stress this enough, it's very important that you have this blade straight up and down. You don't want to angle it like to one side or the other. And now what you want to do is you're going to be bringing it across, and you're not going to be able to feel or be in contact with the stem at this point. the blade of the X-Acto knife, and I believe this is a number 2 blade, is not long enough to get all the way down to the stem, but that's okay. What we're going to do is you're just going to pull it across, and you will feel the blade hit the foot of the glass. And so I'm going to come back up and cut. And now you can see how we've made this cut, okay? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to reinsert the X-Acto blade, and I'm going to come across the top. Now, I didn't feel the foot of the glass, so I'm going to make another pass. You can see I am on the foot of the glass, and I'm making sure that the point of the X-Acto blade is up against the glass as I pull it across. Now I'm going to be going down the other side, and I can feel the foot of the glass, so I have to come up to get over that. Once I'm over it, I'm going to push my blade all the way down. I'm going to try as hard as I can to keep that straight up and down. And I'm going to pull it across, and pretty soon as I'm hitting the bell of my wine glass, and you can see how shallow it gets here, and I'm going to pull the X-Acto knife across. Okay, now what we can do now is we're going to start at the top of the glass again, and you can see how I can open that. You see that? But we can see now where the mold needs to be cut some more. Now I got to tell you, this is the tricky part. If you just do what I tell you and follow my instruction, you'll be able to get through this, okay? I'm going to take a very sharp paring knife. You hear that clicking? I know I'm hitting the glass, okay? I'm going to stay on my line, and I'm going to have to move it this way because I'm right-handed. And what I'm doing is I'm opening up the slit so I can actually see down there. And I'm cutting away at the rubber, and I'm looking for that stem. Again, I have found the stem, and the tip of my knife is up against it, and it's up against it nice and hard. That's a good sign. What I want to do is I want to make up and down cuts, and making sure on the downstroke that I'm hitting the stem. You don't want to miss the stem, or all your work is you're not going to have the best mold, okay? So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking baby cuts. And I don't know if you can hear the clicking, but if I were to miss right now and not hit the stem, I would readjust the angle that I'm cutting at so that the tip of my knife always hits the stem of the glass. It's just really, really important. Now, to help, don't be afraid to spread the mold apart while you're making this cut. And eventually, you are going to hit the foot, okay? Now, I haven't cut through all the silicone, but I have established my cut. And I know that I'm on the stem in the glass. What I like to use is, this is a linoleum knife. You can get this at any hardware store, but it's got a really nice point. And now what I want to do is I want to go down there, and when I was cutting like this, it's almost like, oh, I don't know what you call it, you know, like a serration, you know? And it's not a complete cut. But with this knife, what I can do is I can get in there. Again, I'm making sure that the point of this knife is on my stem of the glass, and I'm pulling it across in order to make a good cut. Just the shape of this is very nice because you can go down there and complete the cut all the way across. Now we're going to do the same thing to the other side, and when we're done that, I'll show you how it looks when we take this mold apart. Okay, so now I have the second side cut, and now it's time to unveil our mold. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to peel it off. All right, there's one half. And then we're going to grab this glass. Well, let's put that right here. And I'm going to face this towards the close-up camera. One of the things I want you to notice is how absolutely shiny the interior of this mold is. Now, we were able to achieve that shine because we washed the glass and we made sure that there was no grease or fingerprints or anything like that. And you're going to get a really, really nice finish all the way through. And when we pour chocolate or isomalt or cooked sugar into this, the glass is going to come out in that medium as shiny as you see on the inside of this mold. So it's really, really important to remember to clean your glassware. You can probably see the silicone plastique cone inside of there, which really enables the air to escape when we poured it. And now this mold goes together very well. But what we've got to do is we've got to make some additional cuts. And I'm going to do that really quickly for you. You see, I found out that when you pour, especially sugar, in this mold, it's very hard to unmold, and you might actually break it, especially at the stem area. So we need a little more relief. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut down the bottom. I cut down the bottom all the way through. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to cut right down the center of the stem and down the top of the foot, and I'm going to have this come and meet with the cut I made across the bottom. So what you get is an effect like this. Now, I'm not going to make this cut all the way through the mold. When I pour this in sugar, which I'm going to do next, I'll show you how important it is to have this extra relief when we're trying to unmold the mold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one up, and I'm going to get the slit tube bit. We're going to set this mold up, and I'm going to show you how we can pour this in isomalt. We'll unmold a sugar wine glass, and you can see for yourself how well a mold like this can work for you. So now it's time to use this mold. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my two halves together. And you know what? You want to look down inside and make sure that the cuts, that the two sides are coming together, and they will. You want them to come together so that when they're compressed, you won't even see them. Now, this is basically a tube that's been slit lengthwise, and what we do is we put that around, and then these are some really nice rubber bands. Now, you know, on the website, we have all these different kits based on different types of glassware, like Martini glasses and wine glasses and fluted champagne glasses and things like that. And so you get all the things that you need that's properly sized. You get the copy flex that you need and all of the different materials, the slit 2-bit and the unslit 2-bit. So it's really great. You'll be able to make, your own mold and use it in your operation. Now, it's time to pour the isomalt. Basically, we don't do anything. You don't have to put any kind of mold release or anything inside of the mold. And one of the most frequent questions I get is, what kind of gloves am I using when I handle the isomalt? Well, these are basically gardening gloves. And if you're sensitive to heat, unlike me, I've been working with these materials all my life, so I tend not to feel it. But if you're sensitive to heat, put some white cotton gloves on first, and then put on these rubberized garden gloves, and it works really, really nice. Now, another question I get all the time is, how do you cook clear isomalt? And everybody has such problems with their isomalt yellowing. Honestly, I can tell you that the isomalt that I sell, which we call clear cut isomalt, is just 100% pure isomalt. It doesn't have any other elements in it. On my website, on the isomalt page, there are complete instructions, my recommendations on how to cook isomalt. And you can even download or print out what I call the Isomalt Bible. And it gives you everything you need to know to cook isomalt that'll come out this clear. And let me tell you something. When you're making glassware out of sugar, this is how clear you want it. Okay? Now, I'm going to put this back in because I want to talk about something. I don't know if this is in my camera, but I'm going to bring this in, okay? This is just a countertop oven. So many people don't believe me, but if you want your isomalt to be absolutely clear and bubble-free like this, the only thing that I do is I cook it to its proper temperature. I pour it in an oven-safe container, and then I put it in the oven and I let it sit there. Now, I want you to pour your glassware at 270 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. Well, we cooked the isomalt to 338, and maybe we should pour it at that temperature. And that's not true, okay? What you should do is you should cook the isomalt to 338, and then put it in an oven so you can maintain it at 270 degrees. We want it at 270 degrees so that it has enough viscosity so it'll go down and fill this mold and give us a glass. But if it's too hot, it's never going to make the type of skin or develop the thickness that we need in order to make a glass that's very realistic. So if you're going to pour this mold at 310 degrees, you're going to get a glass that you probably won't even be able to unmold. As it is, at 270 degrees, we're going to have to leave the isomalt in this mold for 10 minutes before we dump it. Okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that. But I just wanted to make sure that you understand that, number one, you can cook your isomalt according to the instructions I have on my website. Secondly, once you've cooked it, put it in the oven and let it come down to the temperature that you want to pour your isomalt at, which in this case is 270 degrees, and then just relax. Because you can hold your isomalt for hours this way, and it's not going to get too yellow. It's not going to do anything. It's just going to be sitting there waiting for you. So, let me take this out now because we're going to pour it. Okay. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to start out slow And I'm going to try to pour this isomalt, and I'm going to try to needle it down the hole that you see in the bottom. I'm going to try to get my isomalt to fall down into that hole, okay? If I do that, it'll fill the foot. Now, let's say you're unsuccessful, you have shaky hands, or one of your assistants or somebody poured it too fast. What happens is that these cuts that we've put into the mold naturally lets air escape down here, and as we fill this mold, that air escapes. And it's been a pleasant surprise for me to find out that you're going to get a glass. You're going to get the foot and you're going to get the stem, even though you think you didn't get it right down the bottom hole. Another thing I'd like to tell you is don't pour really, really slow. Obviously, you don't want to pour too fast. But it's got to be a steady stream, and don't stop once you start pouring. So I'm just going to roll the isomalt off the edge, and I'm just see how nice that stream is. Now once I fill the stem, then you can see that I'm pouring much faster, okay? In order to fill this mold and fill it all the way to the top. Put your container back in the oven, and now what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for 10 minutes. So our isomalt has been sitting in our mold, and it's been about 10 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my container out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have, these are like square wooden dowels that you can buy at the hardware store. You want to have a butane torch ready, and you want to have a paring knife. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump my mold. Now you do not have to worry about the foot and the stem flowing out of your mold, because by this time the foot and the stem are basically semi-solid, okay? Now you have to let the isomalt drain out of your mold until it stops dripping like you see here. If you don't, and you turn your mold right side up prematurely, what's going to happen is that periodically you'll see these very heavy globs of sugar coming out. And because you haven't evacuated all of the bulk of the sugar, that's going to just start moving back down your glass, and you're going to have an imperfection where the side of your glass isn't perfect, and you're going to have a thick kind of a wave or line, and you really don't want that. So you can see that it's falling down, but it's still flowing. And so I put these dowels here because you can just rest it like that, and then you don't have to hold it. Normally it takes, I don't know, about a minute and maybe a minute and a half for the sugar to flow out of here until it actually stops. What I'm going to do is, let me tell you how we're going to trim that. Basically, I'm going to use this chef's torch, and I'm going to heat up a paring knife, and I'm going to use the back end, not the bladed end, not the sharp end of the paring knife, but the back end. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want to take a sharp edge to my silicone and possibly damage my mold. So all I need is some hot metal here, and I'll show you how this works. I'm just going to remove it. Okay. Now I'm trying to see, do I have any downward flow? Basically not. I just have these curtain strings. Well, there we go. I think that's probably something we took off of the dowel. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the hot knife. Remember, this is not the sharp end. And because I heated the knife, can you see how easy that is? Can you see how easy that is, that we can just trim it nice and clean? See that? You just run it right across the top and you get all your sugar off. Okay, we're going to set that right side up. We're going to put this back in our oven. Now, you do have to wait for this sugar to cool. It's not ready to unmold immediately. You can cover this with like cellophane, plastic wrap, and put it in the freezer or the refrigerator. Why would we cover it? Because we're protecting it from moisture. In a freezer and a refrigerator, we have 100% relative humidity, and that's definitely not good for the sugar. But we do want that cold air. You can put this in front of a fan, in front of your air conditioning unit, and just let it cool down until it's solid. So we've done that. And we have a mold here that we can open. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the bandits off. These are just really nice, thick, fat rubber bands that do a terrific job in closing the mold tightly. Now this is our slit 2-bit that we use to retain our mold, and we take that off easily. And now what we want to do is we want to start to unmold this wine glass. We're gonna start here, and we're just going to pull the mold back a little bit. Okay, and we're going to turn it around and do the same thing on the other side. And you got to understand that this sugar went in hot, and it has 100% contact with the surface on the inside of this mold. And so what we have to do is we have to gently and methodically get some release between the silicone mold and the wine glass. And so you can see that I'm just taking my time, and I'm trying to get the silicone mold removed as much as I can from the wine glass. And there we go. That gives you a shot of 1/2 of the mold removed. Now what we'll do is we'll remove the other half. Remember those cuts we put in the bottom? That really helps us to stretch the mold out and get some release around the foot and the stem. Then what I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got release all around the bell of the glass. And eventually we'll be able to grab this baby and pull it right out. And there you have it. A sugar wine glass in a perfect thickness. Yes, there are bubbles. Your wine glasses can come out with different patterns of bubbles. We call this pitting. This is something that happens naturally between when cooked sugar is poured on a surface of silicone. Try it in your silicone bakeware, any of those pans. If you pour hot sugar in them, you're going to get the same effect. I don't think that we should spend any time trying to eliminate those bubbles. I think it's actually quite attractive. I think that our customers, it should be a visual signal that this is made out of sugar. And I think that our customers will embrace it and enjoy it all the more. I think it's very beautiful looking. And, but if you want to, you can pour your mold and let the isomalt sit in there for 20 minutes so you get a wall thickness on this glass that is 2 or 3 times as thick. Go ahead and take a chef's torch and then actually pass your chef torch over the glass, and you can actually flame out the bubbles and you can get it clear. But I warn you, if you do it too quickly, on a thin glass like this, you're going to get some deformation and your glass is going to start to sag. So that's a way, and that's what all pastry chefs and sugar artists and confectioners do with their sugar when they're working with silicone, is they flame out the pitting so that they can get a nice clarity, which I'm trying to show you in this close-up camera. And you could do that over the whole glass. Now I'm not going to do that, because if I tried, I poured this glass so thin that the heat would eventually overcome the structure of the glass and I'd start to lose my shape. I'm going to show you how you can make these glasses ahead of time. I'm going to show you how you can finish off the tops so they look really nice. And so stay tuned. We're going to be back in the next segment to show you some of those.